So let's bring in Tara Palmeri and Sarah Westwood in Washington. Tara is White House correspondent for Politico, and Sarah is White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to start with Sally Yates. Sean Spicer says he hopes she testifies and rejected reports that the administration wanted to limit her testimony. How significant is this story in your opinion? Sarah, let's start with you.
Well, the Yates story in itself doesn't seem to be particularly significant. You know, she sought guidance on a potentially confidential aspect of her planned testimony from the White House. She didn't get an answer. But it's part of an overall pattern of partisanship that we're seeing from the House Intelligence Committee that's starting to hamper its ability to conduct this investigation. And that's really the fault of both sides. From Republicans, we're seeing a deliberate effort to slow walk these public hearings because the first one that occurred created a lot of headaches for the administration. And from the Democrats, we're seeing the sensationalization of every new piece of information, every little scheduling hiccup, because they are looking to cast this investigation in the most negative light possible for Trump and his team. So this partisanship, it's not limited to one side, but it's starting to impact this committee's ability to look at Russian meddling in the election, which is what, at the end of the day, is the committee's duty.
Yeah, Tara, so Sarah says slow walk here. Yates was supposed to testify on Tuesday, and the committee was also supposed to have a closed-door meeting with FBI Director James Comey and NSA Director Mike Rogers. How should we interpret the fact that some of these meetings are not happening as planned, Tara?
Well, it seems that it does seem like there are some people in that intelligence committee that are trying to protect the White House. The entire Russia situation stinks. If Yates was supposed to go into that committee hearing and testify on Mike Flynn, the NSA director, and his cooperation or contacts with the Russian ambassador, and that was canceled, it's, you know, there's a lot of smoke around that, and it just draws more questions. I mean, anything that has to do with this Russia investigation, if it seems that the White House is trying to cover it up, just creates another day of bad press. And maybe they thought by sending this letter saying, you know, there is presidential exceptions to some of the communication that she can give, that maybe it was a way of preventing her from testifying to maybe, you know, avoid another day of bad press about Mike Flynn, the first scalp from the presidency, the first person to essentially be fired from the White House because of the scandal, of the Russian scandal. I mean, they thought maybe that was a good idea. In hindsight, now they realize that it wasn't a great move, and they should have let her testify. But they haven't scheduled a new date.
Yeah, Sarah, let me ask you. You mentioned partisanship a moment ago on both sides, obviously. But do you think that the Intelligence Committee's credibility has been undermined, as some are saying? And how significant would that be?
Well, look, I think that there is an effort by Democrats to, in a way, create the impression that Nunes is not fit to lead this investigation. I mean, the calls for his recusal and his resignation started the moment he stepped foot on White House grounds last week to brief President Trump on something that wasn't related to Russia in any way. It was not related to this investigation, and yet they used that contact with the president to try to impugn the rest of the investigation that was related to Russia. And so there is some motivations from Democrats to try to make this look as bad as possible for the Trump administration. That being said, Nunes does himself no favors when he doesn't clear up these lingering questions about why he rushed to the White House to meet with President Trump, why he met with an intelligence source on White House grounds, and why he's postponing these hearings if there's nothing to hide, as the administration has said. He's really not helping himself out when there are these questions being lobbed at him from Democrats about his credibility.
Meantime, the president, of course, has a domestic legislative agenda. He said on Tuesday, we are all going to make a deal on health care. And Speaker Ryan says the House will revisit health care. Tara, does that mean that we should expect another overhaul bill from the House GOP?
I've heard from sources that there are talks right now. Speaker Ryan is talking with the House Freedom Caucus. He's speaking with moderates. He does want to reintroduce a bill. He has an event with donors this weekend, and it's a way to really rile up the base, to make them think that, you know, this isn't dead in the water. This wasn't a huge defeat for him. He's really attached to the bill, from what I've heard from people close to him, and he wants to fix it, and he wants to push it through. So we may see something, even possibly by the end of the week, next week, the same bill tweaked we shouldn't expect a new bill altogether, but I don't know if that's enough to persuade the House Freedom Caucus to get on board. And even if you can get them on board, does that mean you lose the moderates? And then there's this whole idea of courting moderate Democrats, but Democratic leadership told me today that they haven't had any contacts from the White House, so they have no idea where this is coming from. They've only heard about it from Reince Priebus on, the Sunday show, saying that they want to reach out.
Yeah, so Sarah, let me ask you, what are you hearing? Because of course, Tara lays out the complications here. On the one hand, if you take steps to satisfy the House Freedom Caucus, you're going to alienate moderates and vice versa. What is it that you're hearing?
Oh, I'm hearing the same thing as Tara, that yes, Paul Ryan does want to maybe take one more stab at getting a version of the American Health Care Act through the House. But that is a departure from the message that the White House is sending, which is that they don't want to attempt this again through reconciliation, that next time they want to present a plan that can get bipartisan support. Potentially that means the House Freedom Caucus will get cut out of the loop because they want to go to moderate Democrats who would be willing to work with the administration. But the key to that, of course, would be the conditions of Obamacare changing enough that Democrats feel pressure to work with Republicans to fix Obamacare. Right now, Obamacare is functioning well enough that Democrats don't feel any obligation to work with the Trump administration to implement any sweeping changes to health care. If those conditions are different, if Obamacare continues to deteriorate, as Republicans are at this point hoping it does, then it looks like what the Trump administration wants is to attempt legislation through regular order, and that's not what we're hearing from people close to Paul Ryan.
All right, we'll continue to watch that. Tara, let me ask you, there is a report that DNC Chair Tom Perez is asking all staffers to resign from their posts as part of a reorganization of the committee. Our politics team said that this is not unprecedented and many staffers can just reapply and re-interview. But Tara, what message does an overhaul of this magnitude send?
I think it sends the message that we've been hearing for a while, that there's a lot of dysfunction at the DNC, and probably partially caused by the leaks, which revealed the fact that the Democratic Party is very divided in terms of, the center and the left, the far left. So, in a way, perhaps clearing house is a way to reunite, regroup, and really create a plan for the future, because right now the Democratic Party is looking very weak right now. And and like you said, when a new boss comes in, they want to bring their own people and they want to have everyone on board. But this whole WikiLeaks experience that they had during the campaign can't be good for morale all along. And so I'm not surprised to hear that they're clearing out.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah, let me ask you. Tara points out that, there really were some harsh things sort of revealed here, and I'm sure still some lingering feelings among some Democrats, particularly Bernie Sanders supporters, who felt as though perhaps things were stacked against them and their candidate to begin with. What do you think overhauling this organization at this point, in the wake of their defeat in 2016, what is the message that sends, Sarah?
I think from Tom Perez's perspective, that sends the exact message that he's been promoting all along as he's running for DNC chair, is that the Democratic Party needs to rebuild from the ground up. It's an acknowledgement that the party fell woefully short in 2016, that they are not where they need to be organizationally, ideologically, that they have a long way to come. And replacing the entire staff of the DNC does signal that Tom Perez wants to reconfigure the Democratic Party altogether. Those divisions are still there. We saw them in the DNC chairmanship race between Perez and between Ellison. That was sort of a proxy war for these competing factions within the Democratic Party. And the hope with both Perez and Ellison at the helm, Ellison is the deputy chair, that they will try to bring in people that bridge those divides within the Democratic Party and send a message that they want to move forward more unified.
All right, Tara Palmeri from Politico and Sarah Westwood of the Washington Examiner, we thank you.
Thank you.